Welcome, everyone, for the second time. I'm Stephen LeBlanc, the Director of Dairy at Guelph, the Center for Dairy Research and Innovation at the University of Guelph. It's my great pleasure to have you here. We've got, again this year, a sellout crowd, although it's our pleasure to have you here as our guests, so we're not really selling anything. But we're here to share the results of a sample of the fruits of the research labor of the over 50 faculty and 150 graduate students and postdocs who make up Dairy at Guelph, the team of people who have everything from everything to a little bit to do with dairy research and support of the dairy industry and dairy innovation. The why are we here, as in the team of Dairy at Guelph? Our mission is sort of twofold: to help the people involved do even more and even better than they would do if Dairy at Guelph didn't exist. And secondly, to make sure that we do as well as we can about getting our message out to knowledge users, including many of you in this room. So represented in the room today, we have researchers, we have our funding partners, our knowledge users, and we want this to be a two-way exchange today, where we'll tell you about many of the things that have gone on in the last year, recent results and work in progress, but also want to hear from you about what your preoccupations are, what your needs are, what you see over the next hill, over the horizon, that we can and should be working on in terms of research to prepare for that future. Our vision is to be a global leader. We have branded ourselves Canada's Dairy University. We think we can back that claim with facts and evidence, but we also see ourselves as a global leader in dairy research, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. To put some evidence to that, we have one of the largest groups of dairy researchers at any university in the world. One of the biggest dairy science conferences is the American Dairy Science Association, held every year, last year in Florida in June. And that motley crew that you see up there was the Guelph contingent, which we didn't actually keep score, but we're pretty darn sure we're the biggest contingent that was there, with nearly 150 abstracts at that meeting, just from University of Guelph. And thank you. And several of our researchers and graduate students were recognized with awards that are certainly a big deal in the dairy research world, including Dave Renaud from Population Medicine for his work in calf health and nutrition, and Christine Bays for her work in animal genetics and breeding. More wins along the way and recognitions for the great successes of many of the members at Dairy at Guelph. Last year, the genetics team that put together the world's first genetic selection index for methane efficiency was recognized by the university with U of G Innovation of the Year award. And also Charlotte Winder, who you'll hear from later today, was recognized with a U of G Research Excellence Award for early career researchers. It's a bit immodest, again. Like good Canadians, we tend to be modest, but if you'll allow me, we're number one. So the flagship journal of dairy science in the world is the Journal of Dairy Science. It certainly publishes most of the dairy research and has one of the highest impact factors, so gets cited by other scientists. And collectively, I think we can be very proud of the fact that the University of Guelph, the Dairy at Guelph team, is the most prolific contributor to the most prestigious journal in our field. And just in case you can't make it out, that means we're ahead of Wisconsin, Cornell, Florida, Michigan, California, et cetera, et cetera. Even Wageningen, which is, brands itself as the world's #1 agriculture university, but we've got them beat on dairy by some distance. We're not just, looking inward and, self-referential from researcher to researcher, though at the end of the day, the point of the research is to get results out into use and into practice. And we connect with farmers in many ways, including our presence at industry events like the CDX, like the DFO annual general meeting. Last year, for the first time, we had a presence at the Southwestern Ontario Dairy Symposium, and we'll continue that going forward. And that presence was both on the podium, that's Eduardo Ribeiro giving a talk, and out in the trade fair interacting with producers. And we have many resources available and always working on more, trying to do things better and differently and creatively to get messages out into practice. So take the results of our research beyond what's just happening at the university, the classroom with grad students, but out to industry professionals, people in the feed industry, animal health industry, genetics industry, and ultimately right out to the farm, because that really is what counts ultimately. And so we've got resources to help get those messages out. Last year we started a podcast series that's still growing. There's several episodes more on the way for this fall. We do plain language research summaries, one-pagers, often with infographics, very short and sweet, digestible messages with links to more details if you want them. And finally, our bi-weekly internal but monthly external newsletter called The Parlor. If you're not already subscribed, really strongly encourage you to do that. Just go to our website, dairy@guelph.ca. All of these things are linked there, the podcast, the research summaries, and subscription to The Parlor newsletter. So with that, welcome. Thank you for being here. I'll just remind you two housekeeping items. The first one is to set your phones on some sort of silent mode. And also we'll have breaks through the day, but washrooms are just out the door you came in, past registration and straight in front of you. During the breaks and during lunch, there's also a selection of posters available for people to see. So if you go out through the lobby, towards the washrooms, but take a left just down the hall. There's another room there with a dozen posters, and at break time and lunchtime, the people who did the work, grad students and postdocs, who will be very happy to tell you what they're up to, what they've done, and what they're still working on. Last but not least, in terms of housekeeping, on the table in front of you, there are a few things. Pens, take those home. Stickers, if your computer isn't already bedazzled with a Dairy at Guelph sticker, you too can be one of the cool kids. So take one of those home for your water bottle, for your laptop, for your forehead, anywhere you want to put it. And last but not least, there's a survey, a form on the table. That is for dairy farmers, actual producers, the people doing the real work. And that is from Chindi, who is here, if you want. Yes, she's standing at the back of the room. She's a master's student in animal biosciences. That's part of her master's research, and she would be thrilled if you're a real live farmer and would fill that out for her. And if you're interested in participating further, please add your contact details for her at the bottom. You can just leave those on the table and she'll get them at the end of the day. Okay, our first presentation is shared. It's a tag team presentation talking about our path as an industry forward to net zero for 2050. So it won't be news to anyone in the room that dairy farmers collectively, Dairy Farmers of Canada's sort of the official umbrella, has said that we're going to get to net zero for carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions as an industry by 2050. The ball has started to roll on that, but there's clearly a lot of work that needs to be done, including research that Dairy at Guelph will contribute to, from animal nutrition to genetics, which you've already heard about this morning, to engineering solutions, all of those things. But to set the table for that, I'm very pleased to have our two invited guest speakers this morning. Representing DFC are Nicole Sillette, who is Director of Sustainability Programs and On-Farm Services, and Corb Whale, who is a local dairy farmer, also member of the board of Lactanet and a very active participant and leader in Dairy Farmers of Canada's initial efforts and developments towards the net zero program. So we'll get the technology fired up here. If you would join me in welcoming Nicole and Corb for our guest talk.